Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Welcome to episode 481 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. Short and simple, we call it the HBCU sports pedagogy. But before I go any further, I just want to give a personal round of applause to both Charles and Mike, particularly Big Mike, not being on assignment, and the fact that the brothers, the team, is all together again. This is 2 in a row. Let's give it up. 2 in a row as we count down to 500. We made it work, man. I appreciate y'all.
I appreciate the comment. I love you to death. I've known you for 30 years. I sense a morsel of shade in that comment. That's all right. We're going to get into the show. Man,
there ain't no shade in here. After how y'all treated me on Friday evening, congratulatory. I ain't no shade here, man. I'm just happy. I mean, you talking this good to have good brothers.
We got it in.
They want to shower you with good love and fun. Yeah. The world can't get much better.
Ain't nothing like the brotherhood when we get it in.
We got it in. Cheers to you, toast to you, congratulations in all sincerity to you, Doc. Well deserved. Again, I can't give enough accolades to you. So love you to death. But you got a little shade in your nature. So
just a little. I did research. I read some research out there that said, when the brothers get together, that's a good thing in terms of life, living longer. So, I sent that to the wife, and man, it made it easier for when I said, hey, man, I got to get out this Friday. She said, bye. I like that kind of insight.
Hey, it's always good when you get the pass. So luckily we all get the pass when we know we're hanging with each other. So hall pass is good. So.
Always.
Any day. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Shout out to all the lab listeners out there. Appreciate you joining us today as we get it in. We're going to have a fun-packed show with all types of information. You know how we do it. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSWH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. I'm going to go with you, Mike, since you felt a little shade. Maybe I should be nice to you after all. Let you start out with a little news of the day. What direction do you want to go?
Let me go this one. I know we're in the midst of basketball season, but HBCU Legacy Bowl announces Willie Simmons' replacement from the HBCU game day. So that around the corner, I believe it's the end of February, but a coaching shakeup has caused kind of a slight change. Prairie View A&M University coach head Bubba McDowell will now join Team Robinson in place of Coach Willie Simmons, who left Florida A&M on January 1 to take a position as running backs coach at Duke University. McDowell will join former Benedict College head coach and new South Carolina State coach Chenice Berry as head coaches representing the SIAC and SWAC in the third annual HBCU Legacy Bowl. McDowell led Prairie View, of course, to that 6-6 season. They also claimed the SWAC West title. Simmons led Florida, of course, to the SWAC championship for 2023, a win in the Celebration Bowl, and a claim undisputed to the HBCU national title, as this team finished 12-1 prior to his departure on to other things. So the coaches for Team Gaither remain the same. Howard University's coach Larry Scott and Virginia Union's Dr. Alvin Parker. So Scott led Howard University to a 6-6 record, going 4-1 in MEAC play to claim the program's first outright title since 1993. So that came on the heels of a 5-6 season in which Howard won a share of the MEAC title amongst a lot of criticism. So, and of course, Dr. Parker led Virginia Union to a 9-2 record, claiming the program's first CIAA title since the year our Lord 2001, 2-0-1. So the Legacy Bowl will be played on Saturday, February 24th at Yeoman Stadium in New Orleans, Louisiana. Kickoff is set for 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Big change, big games.
I like it. Hey, Charles, before I ask you your news of the day, you going to sneak down there to the Legacy Bowl? You know, I've been noticing that you've been running around doing sideline, getting your, information in, doing a little radio here and there. So, I got to check nowadays and see if whether I can sign off on the paperwork that you got another gig.
Well, I have a big something in front of me, so it'll be a little bit tougher to get down to the Legacy Bowl. I'd like to get down there in some manner, but I got some big fish to fry that are sitting right in front of me, some goals that are sitting out in front of me. So it'll be hard during the month of February to kind of maneuver like I want to maneuver, but that's definitely something that I have on the checklist to try to get to. So if the schedule works itself out, a trip to New Orleans is never bad,
See, CB is cryptic. CB is
I see that, man.
It's an announcement coming.
He got something
and he's being all cryptic and CIA like. Come on, drop the CIA talk. We all family.
I get it. Go ahead and put the work in and see you got something in front of you. I know a little bit about that, so I can understand your focus.
I will say once I have the main camera, I want to shout out to my Sands. 30 years in the fraternity. Our anniversary was yesterday. 13 Defined Souls of Eternal Black and Gold. I want to shout out to all my bros from the Delta Phi chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha 30 Incorporated. 30 years of the game, bro. Appreciate that.
Congratulations, Alpha Versary, man. Big time. 30 years. That's a lot of years of putting in work.
No doubt.
Holding the high line. Look at President.
The smoke was partaken. The drink was sipped.
The FAMU Rattlers out there still celebrating that championship. Got a coach in the mix. I guess I'll go to you to talk a little bit about what else you want to put on the news.
Speaking of which, let's talk about that. Unless you've been on the rock, but there's a formal announcement. The Florida A&M, they stay in house in terms of naming James Colzie as their head coach. And nearly a month after Willie Simmons left for Duke, the school named assistant James Colzie as the school's 19th head coach. He was a Rattlers interim head coach after Coach Simmons departed. The search engine, what some might describe as a bit of a tumultuous process in regards to the stakeholders and Tiffany Dawn Sykes, but now they have the coach, and this is a statement from Coach Colzie. I'm thrilled. From AD Sykes. I'm thrilled to announce Coach James Colzie as our new head football coach. Coach Colzie's dedication as an interim head coach and now as our permanent leader exemplifies his commitment to excellence. So when you take a look at Colzie, he has worked in football for more than 2 decades and has been a part of 3 national championship teams. He was a quarterback at Florida State for his first national championship in 1993. Colzie was previously head coach at St. Mary's University in Canada, where he went 23-19. He also has been part of FAMU's defense that has ranked among the nation's best during his first 2 seasons. So, when we take a look at it, Coach Colzie has earned the respect of our entire team and coaching staff and will provide the needed continuity and stability to keep our championship program headed on its current trajectory. So one thing that Coach Colzie said, and this is a quote from him: "I am eternally grateful to FAMU President Dr. Robinson and our Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, for their confidence in me." So the Rattlers, they got the man who they wanted, James Colzie. So everything is all right once again in Tallahassee. Everybody can take a deep, deep sigh of relief.
Is that the man they wanted?
That's the man they wanted. They got the guy.
They got the guy. Okay.
Got the guy. Yeah.
So, Charles, Mike, since I asked Charles this question after his news, what are your thoughts? The fact that they got the guy, you kind of jumped in there, and so you think they're good? You feel good about the move, Mike?
I feel good because it's one that the players pushed. If the players are behind it, that has to be a voice in the room, one of the stakeholders. So I feel good about it. What I don't feel good about, and I'll be quite honest, is it's kind of the process to get there. You know, it seemed like it took some time. It seemed like authority was taken out of individuals' hands at times. But if you listen to the right voices, I think they got the right person.
I got you. Shout out to Stephen Gay for showing us some love and watching us. Hey, Stephen, man, don't get in all this talk with these folks about who you are and what you are. Do your thing. Let these folks don't feel you got to explain yourself to these people. Go on about your business. Let it go. With that, let me go back to you, Mike, and get a little more news. What else you got on your plate? What do you want to share?
I saw something about the Michael B. Jordan Legacy Classic schedule and how to watch. The Invesco Q3 Legacy Classic is the HBCU men's basketball showcase created by the award-winning actor, producer, director, all of that above, including the heartthrob of my daughter. So there will be an HBCU band showcase in between games. This year is February 3rd at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Guess what, y'all? That's coming up this weekend. It will broadcast and stream on TNT. The following teams will participate in the Classic: Grambling State of the SWAC, Jackson State of the SWAC, Howard of the MEAC, and Hampton of the Colonial Athletic Association, or CAA. Game schedules have been posted. I believe 1 p.m. Eastern time, I believe Grambling goes against Jackson State. And then at 4 p.m. Eastern time, Howard goes against Hampton. And so we have teams entering the record, entering the Classic. I think Grambling State's 5-1 in SWAC play. Jackson State's 4-2 in SWAC play. Howard is 2-3 in MEAC. And Hampton is 0-9 in COO play. So look forward to that Classic coming up. It's going to be big. Also look for that Classic to grow in years coming. So that's another piece of news.
I'd be scared if that Classic continues to grow. I think they had 13,000 people in there, and I was trying to plan the group to get down there. We even got our media passes, I learned today, even though they get you kind of late. And I got to work to see how they go about that, because it gets a little late to try to book a flight this late in the game. But
we can still get there. we can still get there.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Mike, I was trying to send a message.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Must be something about them 30 years, boy. People get a little more boisterous after 30 years.
Hey, we will make it happen.
Yes, indeed.
Don't call him Young Buck no more.
Not at all. Old dog in the game. Yes, indeed. Oh boy.
He lied. He get on that porch. That ice koozie, boy. He don't play. Go ahead, Charles. Give us some more news. What else you want to go with?
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Let's get into some basketball, especially when we come out of break. But a lot of great basketball that we were able to take a look at this past weekend. So I'm sure we'll jump into that. But I mean, so much stuff to get into, man. Looking forward to it as far as Man, the things are just interesting. I mean, this Doctor, the first quarter poll in terms of looking at games around the SWAG MEAC and things of that nature. Very interesting. Very interesting in terms of the first few conference games, and now we're through January now. So we got to jump into that.
Yeah, we can get in there. What's your thoughts real quick before we take this first break? Go ahead and share a little tease as we decide when we can jump in there a little more. But what are your tease as you talk about jumping in?
Quick tease. I did not expect Jackson State to go 0-2 this weekend with the Florida trip. I did not see that coming.
That's a perfect tease. We'll take a break, come back, we'll release the polls, we'll do the women's side. And you notice when he said 0-2, that was not the women.
That was the men.
That was not the women.
So we'll save that for the third segment, just to make sure some of y'all that do not follow SWAC basketball like the others. So he's referring to the men. And we will get into a little talk about those games that took place this past weekend. We'll give you some early indicators of what's taking place this weekend. As we get to the midway mark, after this weekend, that's 9 games down. You're halfway through the season. Man, does it fly. It seems like just the other day we were finishing up with the Celebration Bowl and trying to figure out how do we turn the curve and get people in basketball. Well, if you're not into it now, don't be careful. You can blink, you're going to miss it because it'll be the tournament time. With that, stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. We'll get into the top 5 major division style with the women. We'll be right back after this break.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
At Hampton Law, our primary goal is to provide non-traditional yet effective solutions and redefine the approach to client legal concerns. As your trusted legal advisor, we believe in sophisticated, personalized services that eliminate the confusion and complexity sometimes associated with legal matters. Our high standard for client care and concern, coupled with our extensive legal knowledge and skills, make Hampton Law a resource focused on the protection of the client's interest and overall goals. We value our clients and truly enjoy working with them. Visit thamptonlaw.com to conveniently schedule an appointment online. Tamika Hampton Esquire, 1631 Rock Springs Road, Suite 336, Apopka, Florida, 407-494-1471. thamptonlaw.com.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Great conversation going on in regards to those following us, particularly on Facebook. Obviously, we are on YouTube Live at BCSN, following those updates. We'll talk a little bit there. I want to give a little update in terms of Byron giving some great information about Florida public colleges and universities, about the minimum amount of pay that they can pay a coach, $250K, which means if you want to go above that, that money has to come from outside sources such as boosters, alumni. I think Silas brings in a great thought process about excited about FAMU and Texas Southern for that fact, getting their individual, but his concern in regards to how it was done and maybe usurping athletic director's authority. We had a conversation about that a week ago at the end of the show. We're going to do that again because my man, Kendrick Hooks, dropped a HBCU bomb out there today about some D2 programs moving up. It's kind of been sneaking around a little bit. Those insiders have had the information. Now it's starting to flood a little bit of outside it. And he's a Tuskegee alum. He does D2 HBCU football. Guy Twitter. He does a show with Stephen Gaither and Chris Ferguson. Excellent show they do during the fall about HBCU football at the D2 level. Got to challenge Stephen Gaither to do some more shows at the basketball level for D2. Find some basketball guys he can do a show with as he bring it in there, because that was some great information. We need to make sure that we pub all of our HBCUs, particularly those at the D2 level. We focus on all of them, but others focus on the SWAC and MEAC. The last segment, we're going to get in a little bit of that discussion and allow Charles and Mike ask me, and I'll flip the script and be the host, and we'll get into that dialogue, and I give some thoughts. They want to tease a little bit in regards to important that in higher education, we have to remember that an individual, AD, provost, or the president do not have the authority to hire, particularly people with contracts. Contracts in public institutions, state organizations, or federal organizations have to go through a very thorough process. And I think people confuse that of the Power 5 when they make quick hires. A lot of that money that they are getting comes from outside sources, boosters, and etc. So we'll take a deeper dive in that. But I want to remind you that we need to be careful about thinking, because we're misled if we think a president, provost, or an AD, VP of athletics at a public institution has the right to hire anybody with a contract or hire a contractor to do some work. That has to be done with the approval of the board. All they do is make recommendations. That includes deans. All right, with that being said, let's get into the top 5 of the women's major division. Again, we'll come back, get some more discussion, so y'all keep that going into this dialogue there. But let's get in this major division of basketball. Great games this past weekend. Some things changed around. Teams dropping out this week. Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. 13-7. They fall to 4-3 in the conference play. Had a tough weekend, losing a game, winning one, bouncing back and forth. But that's 2 weekends in a row where they hadn't been able to kind of string some wins together, if you would. So they fall to 13-7 and 4-3 and fall out of the poll. But also receiving votes. Bethune-Cookman continues to receive votes, 39. Southern Jaguars are also receiving votes. They had a big weekend. They doing that win-loss thing as well, though, 6-12, 4-3. So you see a lot of teams in the mix in the middle in the SWAC race with a lone star up there in the SWAC kind of getting it done. Not so much in the MEAC. A lot of people juggling up. We'll see what that means. But let's get in the top 5. We do have a new team in the top 5, and they enter at number 5. That's UAPP, the Golden Lions, 10-10 on the season, 5-2 as they get rolling. 2 big wins this past weekend, 52 points. They were not ranked, as you know, at number 5, bringing us to number 4. The Grambling State Tigers, they do the win and loss, but they stay in the mix. They stay at number 4. In fact, Grambling State Tigers at 11-7, 5-2, 54 points as they are ranked number 4. Bringing us to number 3, Norfolk State Spartans. They out of the MEAC, getting in the top 3 thing as they are 15-5, 4-1, 61 points. They stay at number 3. And at number 2, North Carolina A&T State Aggies. They're rolling. They win 2 wins just like Norfolk State over the weekend, and they climbed to 12-6 overall, 6-1 in the Colonial. I know that's the Coastal Athletic Association, but once Colonial, I'm gonna call you what your mama call you. How you founded Colonial. 73, remaining at number 2. At number 1, 2 big wins. Jackson State Tigers beating up on folks. In fact, 12-6, they're 7-0. Only team at the Division I level perfect in conference play are the ladies over there at Jackson State. 8 first place votes, all 80 points, and remain at number 1. In week number 4, Jackson State Tigers remain number 1 in the ranking, getting it done. With that being said, let me go to you, Mike. What are your thoughts on week number 4, Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU top 5 poll rankings for the women?
Not a problem whatsoever with the women's major ranking. There's Jackson State and there's everybody else, but beware of UAPB. They are climbing the ranks. The one caveat I have to say with UAPB is if you look at the standings and where they are somewhere in the tops in terms of scoring. The problem is in defense. And allowed points. So they're scoring 76 points a game, but allowing 70. So that may be an Achilles tendon. I don't know. Also rebounding. Are there certain points in the game they're getting out rebounding? But beware of UAPB. They are climbing the ranks. I expect a few more victories. But there's Jackson State and everybody else. Let's be clear, but watch out for UAPB. They have moved up, I think, from number 6 to number 4 in the rankings and total team scoring. So watch out. When you have a team that's scoring that much, they're a scoring juggernaut, but they allow a lot of points and they allow rebounds. I don't know what the size of their backcourt is, something I have to take a look at, but beware of that team. But as far as your rankings, spot on point.
Thank you, Mike. With that being said, let's go to Charles and see what he thinks about the top 5, I should say. Charles?
I think you're spot on, but I would, my caveat, it would be Jackson State and North Carolina A&T and everybody else. What they're doing over in the Colonial Athletic has been impressive. 6-1 start thus far through January. I think the most impressive thing about Jackson State to me, they do not have a top 10 scorer. They do not have a top 10 player in terms of rebounding. I believe Angel Jackson might be 9th in the conference in rebounding, but they really give it to you on the defensive end. They really turn up the pressure. Very impressive.
They're allowing only 58 points a game.
Only 58 points.
They're doing something defense. They're scoring 25 points more than they allow the other team. So I agree with you. They don't have a standout scorer, but they're only allowing 58 points. You do that, you can win most games.
And there's a point where they hit another gear. You know, I think I was looking at the game with Bethune-Cookman, and the score was in the third quarter. Jackson State was up only 2, and then all of a sudden they hit the gas pedal. So I think, it's just impressive to know that they have another gear. I always say it's going to be, to me, impressive. I think when Jackson State comes out to Texas and does Texas two-step, for whatever reason, it's always a dogfight when they go down to Prairie View. And so I'm going to be paying close attention to that game. But you talk about a team that's been playing with a chip on their shoulder. Jackson State has come out extremely impressive. After taking one on the chin last year in the SWAC tournament, it's almost as though they're coming playing this season with a lot more to prove.
Charles is just, I don't know. Charles makes a big deal and worried about the little things. Let me talk about this line. Jackson State first quarter 28, second quarter 23-18, third quarter 23-15. Oh, fourth quarter, 24-15. Bethune-Cookman outscores them, but they lose 81-65. They built such a lead in the cushion. Yeah, okay. They get 2. It gets.
They hit another gear.
With that being said, what other game excited you this past weekend that kind of said, interesting? Whether it's MEAC or SWAC.
UAPB over Grambling. I think that was
absolutely.
That was the one that caught my eye in terms of UAP getting the victory over Grambling. I was curious to see what was going to happen in that game. And like you mentioned, Mike, UAPB, you got to keep an eye on them. They are one of the more talented teams when you talk about Zay Green, who can take over a game, Kariah Beck, Maya Pete, Veteran Ball Club. They will be right there in the mix once we get to the tournament.
Yeah, they were really solid, dominated at the half. Credit to Grambling. They had a big third quarter where they at least outscored them, but it was only by 3. But they Pine Bluff Golden Lions got it done in that fourth quarter, 15-11, to ensure the victory, winning 56-49. Mike, what are your thoughts on some of the games this past weekend? Anything out of the MEAC or, as Charles alluded to, in terms of the Coastal with North Carolina A&T? What excited you about some of the games this past weekend that stood out?
Well, I looked at the Norfolk State game. And, if you look at their past games, you look at their last 5 games, and then you look at the margin of victory in that game, and then you look compared to others. So, let's, take us, they beat Morgan State by 20. They beat Coppin State by 16, 17. They put a serious W on University of Washington, Mary. So while it wasn't their only loss was to Howard, which is somewhere in the middle of the pack. But I think they're making the case and solidifying their dominance with especially with their win over Morgan State. So I will be honest, I would like to see, how they come up. They got a stretch against Delaware State, Maryland Eastern Shore, and then South Carolina. But that one against North Carolina Central will be interesting. So though that game and how they're playing, they're pretty much solidifying themselves as the masters of the MEAC, at least at this point in the 23-24 season. And then Coppin State is a distant second. And you're like, well, Coppin State, we were talking about them 3 weeks ago. They're one of the leading scorers. Team scoring is kind of somewhere in the tops in the MEAC. But if you look, they have a key loss to Norfolk State. Their margin of victory has been tight. They've had to win some tough games, either by defense or out rebounding. So it's Norfolk State right now. And that last game kind of showed me. I saw glimpses of that. And they're a scoring juggernaut right now.
Man, I like that game that you pulled out when you talk about the MEAC. Going into this, Charles and I and yourself from Thursday particularly talked about the fact that on the MEAC side, that was a game to watch. That Coppin State and Norfolk, and then Coppin and Howard. While Norfolk won by 8, it was a very competitive game. Obviously, the Eagles came in there 3-0 in conference race. They took that loss, but then they bounced back on Monday and got a huge victory over Howard that was playing pretty well. They won by 5, so it was a really good contest, back and forth in a lot of ways throughout it. They lost on the road to Norfolk, then they come home and get the game at Howard. So fascinating for Coppin to put themselves in the position to be at 4-1 and really pushing Norfolk to continue to do what they get done. So great points when you talk about there. Coming into this weekend, on the women's side, I'm not sure, big matchups here. You had Coppin and North Carolina Central, Delaware State and Norfolk State, Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore, Morgan State and South Carolina. Those games are on Saturday. On Monday, you got the Morgan, North Carolina Central, Howard at Delaware State, Norfolk at Maryland Eastern Shore, and Coppin at South Carolina State. Nothing in terms of those competitive teams in the mix. Obviously, Maryland Eastern Shore, Central, and Howard are all at 3-2, so they have a chance to see if they can really stay behind Norfolk State and Coppin State that seem to be pushing it. So that's where you're going there. In terms of the SWAC this weekend, as I said, this gets you to your halfway mark. So it'll be intriguing to see those teams that get into those 9 games. Some of them play the 9th game on Saturday, and then you have some, obviously, that have their start Saturday, Monday. So you have your 6 big games on Saturday, FAMU, Alabama A&M, Grambling, and Jackson State. That or if you would, should be fascinating what's going on. That's the one that's Prudential in New Jersey. So you'll get a chance to watch that on TNT, so make sure you check it out. You have Southern and Alcorn, obviously another border war. Anybody from these parts know how that goes down. Both teams are playing really well. Particularly, Alcorn has won 3 straight, and they seem to right the ship, so they have Southern at home. Southern had big victories this past weekend, too. So fascinating with that. You have the Texas rivalry, Texas Southern, Prairie View, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama State. When I say Alcorn, that's on men's side. Obviously, we're talking about women now. But Pine Bluff at Valley. So fascinating to see what that looks like on Monday. Grambling, Alcorn, Pine Bluff at Prairie View. In terms of the remake of that game that was canceled earlier because of the weather. So you get that in on Monday. So it's fascinating to see what that looks like. Southern at Jackson State, FAMU at Alabama State, and Bethune-Cookman at Alabama A&M. Any thoughts on the SWAC side of that for you, Charles? Any game that you got your eyes on, either Saturday or Monday or both?
Rivalry games. I always pay attention to rivalry games. So Texas Southern and Prairie View. Grambling at Jackson State. Intriguing. I kind of like that one.
Yeah. And that's going to be intriguing because this time the ladies get all the shine because the men are state, and so they're at home, and so everybody's going to be there to really kick it out. Folks get a chance early to probably go out to the sports bars, have some maybe home contests to check out that game, and then they come in there to the arena and see the women do what they do. So I'm fascinated. Good one to pick. Mike, in terms of the SWAC, what are you looking at?
Same thing. Southern's got to take the Mississippi trip. So, and then, if you look at Grambling, as Chuck alluded to, they've got Jackson State and Alcorn State. That Jackson State, Patrick, it really, it kind of, all right, that's a big game. But depending on how that game goes, Alcorn State is somewhere number 8, 9 in the SWAC. But depending on how you play, could you have a letdown against Alcorn State on the road? So those games, that game really, that whole trip intrigues me a little bit. I'll be watching that one.
When you talk about that, you go over there, want to show some love for Colonial, North Carolina A&T. On Friday, they have University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Shouldn't be a problem there. Obviously in-state, so you want to make sure you do what's necessary for your recruiting battles. Got to take care of your business. Wilmington only has 3 wins on the season. And then you host Northeastern for that matchup. With that, let's get into our next break. We'll come back on the side, and we'll talk about the major division for the men. Top 5, see what these gentlemen think of week number 4 for the major division of the men. Stick with us. Be right back after this second break.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
Press the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Will with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's jump right into it in terms of the major division for the men. We had 2 teams drop out this week, man, taking the double L's. It was tough on some teams that were in the top 5 that were playing some really good basketball. Well, they got thumped, and that causes you to fall out when it's only top 5. People put in that work, and they're going to jump in. Who was that? 1 out of the MEAC and 1 out of the SWAC. In terms of the MEAC, that was Delaware State Hornets, 10-11, 3-2. That should be Jackson State Tigers, 8-12, as they fall to 5-2. Both teams lost over the weekend in terms of taking those L's. So who's receiving votes? That would be none other than Grambling State Tigers at 8-12, 5-2, as well as Delaware State Hornets, 10-11, 3-2. 40 and 38 points respectively, looking to get back in the mix as they look to get it done. Let's get into the top 5 to see who jumped in the poll. Both of them jumped in the poll, just edging in. Alabama State Hornets, they're hot. None other than Texas Southern, that is just outside receiving votes, a little further down than Delaware State, playing some really good basketball. Alabama State went to the wire on the road here in Houston after winning a game on Saturday. So they fall to 10-10, 5-2, but after a red-hot start, because of those double losses, they do find their way in the top 5. With that being said, what about number 4? The Southern Jaguars bounced back a bit after kind of taking a dip. They get 2 big wins. They are up to 10-9 overall, 5-2 in the conference race, is 71 points. They were not ranked, but they jumped into the top 5 with 2 big wins over the weekend. At number 3, Norfolk State Spartans. They're rolling 14-8, 4-1 in conference play. 2 big wins themselves, 2 first-place votes, 89. They stay at 3 because of the top 2 teams above them continue to win as well. That is number 2 out of the MEAC. Also, North Carolina Central, they had that classic game at home against Norfolk State. It'll be fascinating with that rematch. But because of that, they edge out Norfolk State 12-8, along with the big win, 4-1, 2 W's. 3 first-place votes as they add 1 at 100 points, but they remain at number 2, bringing us to Tennessee State Tigers, who remain at number 1, 12-9, 5-3, just won conference game this week, but they went on the road and got a big one with 6 first-place votes as they dropped 1, but they still remain at the top with 105 points. Previously ranked number 1 for the 2nd consecutive week, the Tennessee State Tigers remain at number 1 in the top 5 ranking for the men. With that being said, let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts on the major division for the men this week in week number 4?
Big win last night for Texas Southern, taking down Alabama State. The Alabama State came into that game 5-1, sitting on top of the conference. I think that was a huge win at home for Texas Southern, being able to knock off Alabama State. Very impressive team. Get an opportunity to see Alabama State up close in terms of some of the things that they do. TJ Madlock is a tremendous scorer, a guy can get in the lane and cause a lot of havoc and confusion, but he had a great game last night. I think I looked up at one point at 17 points and 7 rebounds. So he gets it done on both ends of the court. Tennessee State, big one this upcoming week, Thursday. They get a conference lead in Morehead State. Morehead State, interestingly enough, 10-0 at home, but 6-5 on the road. Tennessee State hosting Morehead this Thursday. I think that's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I like what you're saying when you talk about those matchups there. When you look at the SWAC, as you talked about, Texas Southern with that big win, it just puts them a half a game out of first. Yep. At 5-3, they do have 3 teams above them with 2 losses, which is Grambling State Tigers that do have that head-to-head win with Southern Tigers, Jaguars that also at 5-2, and Alabama State that took that loss to Texas Southern sits in 5-2. So it's fascinating to see what that looks like. Southern had that win over Texas Southern earlier, Grambling as well as Texas Southern, but we kind of seeing, at least from the first half of the season, how things are shaping out. Should be a fascinating race going down the stretch. As we look at that, Mike, in terms of the top 5, what are your thoughts on the top 5 in week number 4?
I'm going to say it again, man, this is twice in a row. No issue whatsoever with your top 5. I think it's appropriately done. I think you have to watch out for Texas Southern. Not only did they go through both Alabamas this past weekend, they have a head-to-head win against Grambling State. Grambling State's number 2 under Southern. So watch out for Texas Southern. They clawing their way up to the top.
I'm fascinated with Texas Southern. They do have that tough loss to Jackson State. They have lost to Southern. So and those were on the road. So they certainly are playing much better at home. We'll see what that looks like. Charles, any team in the middle of that you're like, hey, watch out for this team. They might be gelling, getting hot. Bethune-Cookman, Arkansas Pine Bluff, or are you thinking about somebody else?
Well, I was actually looking at Norfolk State because they got a real good one. They host Delaware State this upcoming weekend. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if Delaware State can take the show on the road to an always hostile environment when you talk about playing Norfolk State. But back to your question, I mean, those teams in the middle who can make that jump. What can Bethune-Cookman do on the road? We know what they can do at home. That was huge last night. Fun stuff happens on Monday night. Alcorn goes in Bethune-Cookman and gets a win on national TV, hostile environment. That
was a nice game. Yeah. We were cheating as we were sitting courtside watching Texas Southern, and during timeout breaks, we'd go to the screen as we'd watching the game, and we get in there, and then we'd have to pop back up. Boy, it's fascinating. Beautiful thing when you can watch these games on various platforms and take a cheat code, if you would, of what's going on. Fascinating. As you talk about Norfolk, 4-1, one of the hottest teams out there, 4 straight wins. To your point, 3 in conference. But check this out. South Carolina State sits at 3-2. New coach in there making moves. 3 straight wins as they've got some big wins, including they won on Saturday where they got the buzzer beater against Delaware State. That was a red-hot team, a team that took it hard. I told you they took 2 L's, but they were close ones. Delaware State is still playing pretty good, even though they lose at the buzzer at home. On the road, as you would, to South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, and then North Carolina Central gets them at well and just clips them to get by in that matchup.
You talk about top teams. You can't. Normally, I'm a critic of Tennessee State, and I look at their schedule. They have a 4-game winning streak. So you said they beat Lindenwood, number whatever at the bottom of the OVC, but they beat Tennessee Tech, Western Illinois, Eastern Illinois, one of which is number 2 under the team they're getting ready to play, Moorhead. I'll be interested to see, as CB mentioned, how they, even if they don't win, how they match up against Moorhead State, the number 1 team in the OVC. But Tennessee State, make no bones about it, they're number 2 in the OVC in scoring. They're in tops and rebounding and other defensive. This is a very strong Tennessee State team. Make no bones about it. So I'll be interested to see how they fare, win or loss, against Moorhead State.
Yeah, they started really well in the non-conference. Shout out to Alabama A&M. They got them at home, I must add, in terms of SWAC OVC matchup against 2 HBCU programs. They got that win over number 2 Western Illinois, but that Moorhead matchup, that's a Thursday game at 7 o'clock, to your point. One to keep your eyes on to see if Tennessee State continue with the magic as they started off slow in the OVC, but now are getting hot. When you talk about the SWAC, though, there's a couple of teams red hot that you may not be focused on. That is, if you would, Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff is quietly got 3 wins in a row in terms of what they're getting done. Well, they just had the 1 win, but they've snuck up and all of a sudden they're looking at 4-3. The Braves with 3 straight wins, quietly after kind of taking it to the cheek earlier, should get some people nervous. You know how it is when they start to get the roll in, which included that tough road win on Monday, which Charles says look out for. Anytime you get that road win on Monday, particularly after getting it done against Raleigh and Tallahassee on Saturday, the sweep, that's pretty significant to get that.
That's another one
on the road.
I'd like.
The other team
like
that has won a couple of games in a row was Southern. As I told you, 2 in a row in Texas Southern Tigers. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. I'd like to see them going through the state of Alabama. You got a hot Southern team and a good Grambling State. I want to see how they fare again going through the state of Louisiana against Southern England.
Side note, Tennessee State, Moorhead State, keep an eye on Christian Brown, guard for Tennessee State. He's averaging almost 15 points a game, 46% from the field, 40% from behind the arc. He can knock down some threes.
Kid can bang them.
when you talked about those key matchups, some of the rivalry, Prairie View and Texas Southern, that's going to be interesting to keep your eyes on. Can Prairie View turn the curve and get it done? Obviously, they have that makeup game on Monday with Pine Bluff, who's, like I said, pretty hot. So it's fascinating to see after you get the highs of playing your rivalry game, whether you win or lose it, then you come back and you usually had that Monday off. But now you got to play Lisa's at home, but you got to play Pine Bluff. Kind of interesting to keep your eyes on what that looks like in terms of that matchup. With with Pine Bluff doing the same thing, taking on Valley on Saturday, their rival, if you would. That's on the road, so they go from Valley all the way to Texas, getting back there. So I'm intrigued to what that looks like. I know it's early, but midway mark, give us some indication of what things are looking like. With that, let's go into our last break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into some of this discussion of what's hot, what's out there in terms of D2 HBCU programs are heating up the discussion. We've loved to talk about conference churning. Will it take place? Particularly going from D2 to FCS, it's been a while since we had some teams move up. Most of them lately have moved back down as the last time we've seen that. So get your thoughts on that. And we can get into some of the discussion also, again, with VP, ADs in regards to coaching search. Mike kind of put that out there in terms of the time. And I think he's right in terms of the length of what that looks like. But I do think we have to be careful to make sure that we're looking at it from the lens of FCS D2 status versus the Power 5 and how quick they get stuck. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break. It looks like Charles is focused and ready to go in. So now I'm getting a little nervous. So let me get this break to make sure I get my stamina back and be ready to go into this. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted CAVIL'S voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. CAVIL'S Voice, CAVIL'S Voice, CAVIL'sVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As I said earlier, Kendrick Hooks put out there in regards that he's gonna have to get into a little bit of a mix. He did it on X, formerly known as Twitter, jumped out there talking about essentially alluding to Morehouse and maybe even Tuskegee. So, Charles, with that, I'm going to let you jump in here as we talk about the framework of these HBCU D2 programs looking at moving up. And the question becomes, are you joining the MEAC? You joining the SWAC? A lot of people assume that if Morehouse makes the move, whether that's the talk, the strategic plan, how soon that may be, are leaning towards the MEAC. but the swag is out there as well. And now you're starting to hear whether it's Tuskegee, whether it'll be a domino effect if Morehouse moves, Miles College, Clark Atlanta, Benedict, Edward Waters has really been doing it at the D2 level. Obviously, it just moved up. But in terms of this, the shade that they're putting out there, all the good news they're putting out there and how they market the program, some people are saying, hey, maybe you push that way. Virginia State has always been one of the programs that interests a lot of folks. Bowie State, quietly, folks want to see them maybe doing it, maybe than they have really talked about. And then some people even find a way to sneak in Fayetteville State to surprise you with that. So, Charles, what gets into your mind? How do you want to open this up?
Well, the first question I would ask, if I'm a fan of Morehouse or I'm a fan of Tuskegee, is first and foremost, how are we going to do this? I mean, the proverbial houseway, what are the barriers to entry? And does bumping up to Division I, is that in our actual best interest? And then the second part to that is, and you preached this for a long time, how key is that Atlanta market in regards to whether it's the SWAC or the MEAC getting there first?
I think the first part of that is really a tough question and a fair question. Is it our best interest? And I think we have to be careful because we'll put our thoughts on what is our best interest. This is when we need to disaggregate HBCUs and really look at the particular HBCU that we are speaking of moving from NCAA Division II to Division I at the FCS level. In this case, Morehouse. One of the things that we know about Morehouse is in terms of their endowment, the funds that they have associated with that institution. So while a lot of people will talk about them not really seeming to care about athletics, and I think for most of us, that's from a football perspective. Because anybody has followed Morehouse at the Division II level understands that they have a really good basketball program that's been in the mix for many years and been in the hunt. Baseball is pretty solid in terms of what they do as well in track and field. So they've had some ability to navigate their space in the other sport, but not so much in football. If you go back further enough, you can go back to Doug Williams in terms of what he was able to do. That could show you that if Morehouse gets the right coach, that they can win. And so in that case, I think it's about whether Morehouse decides that this is in their best interest to move up, and are they going to allocate the resources? They have the resources. Are they going to make the resources available? And so I think that's a bigger question to decide whether they want to do that. I don't think we can really answer that until we sit down, look at their strategic plan, or ask them, why are they doing this? Another thing that we don't often look at is there a marketing or a brand awareness that's part of this? And would putting Morehouse at the Division I at the brand level, not only playing in HBCU Division I programs, as you've seen recently, or what they've been able to do, play Howard, whether that's on football or whether that's in basketball on those Mondays, there's been a lot of interest, a lot of eyes on that. So if you take it up and commit and play at the Division I level, the finances necessary to be competitive in the MEAC, whatever that average money is, more similar to what they do in terms of power, that's going to be interesting looking at that. So I think we need to be careful and really consider, why are they doing it? Is this something they want to do that's strictly about athletics, or is it in the big vision of where they want Morehouse to go in regards to the brand analysis? And you really could do that with any of the schools that I said, whether it's Tuskegee, Edward Waters, even Benedict. What does that look like? The state schools in terms of Virginia State or Fayetteville State, Bowie State, or even if you go back to SIEC, with Fort Valley State or Albany State in terms of the enrollment. What does that look like, where they are in terms of being average size of some of the schools in the MEAC? Where do those schools fit? And that needs to be done apples to apples, meaning public school to public school, private school to private school, regards to that. Before you follow up, Charles, let me let Mike jump in there and see if he wants to ask a follow-up question in terms of his thought process of where he wants to go in that student.
So we talked about a lot of factors, I guess. We talked about branding. We talked about, is it necessarily what's best for us? And that to me takes an objective point of view, and it depends on the university. We talked about who's first in getting to the Atlanta market. One of the things we also have to talk about is revenue and what this means potentially for other sports as well. Basketball or spring sports. How does it impact them as well? Travel schedule as well comes into as a factor in that total analysis. So as you put a budget together, what's the best travel schedule? What's the best alignment schedule? And then also you start talking about branding and then potential revenue and which is best, from a branding standpoint to enter that Atlanta market. The other thing I want to talk is when you make that move, other things is the facilities. There typically is facility requirements depending on what NCAA says at different levels. You guys are probably better experts than I, but I know that there are requirements for certain facilities when making that kind of jump. Does either facility, are they in a place to meet those requirements as well? So those are three more factors that always come into the fray of the discussion when you're talking about moving or making that kind of move.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you brought that up when you talk about facilities, and I'll jump right back to you, Charles, because I see you want to get in there, and I'll be quick with this. Be careful in terms of facility NCAA, because that's the case at the FBS level. At the FCS Division I level, there's really not any frameworks to facility requirements. There are some very small Division I programs in terms of the basketball facility. Now, what people look at usually is like whatever conference you're going to be competitive in terms of the recruiting landscape, you really want to make sure that your facilities are on par with your conference type of individuals that you're working with.
Well, that leads to
but it's not based on, said minimum requirements, right? Okay. To that point. You think about Morehouse, the basketball facility is part of the Olympics. So it's older, but size-wise, it's pretty good there. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, what is it about the market environment now to where Morehouse or Tuskegee is looking at the bump up to Division I athletics? I mean, it's Morehouse, okay? It's Tuskegee. We know about their alums. So what is it? Why didn't they do this, 15, 20 years ago? What is it about the market now that where they might have the itch?
First thing is the president. I always tell folks that, a lot of this happens to go with the president. What is the president's strategic plan? What is their vision at a given time? So that's a lot of this, is that you got a different leader that sees that this is important. I think we can't besmirch that the MEAC has had a serious interest of reaching out to schools. And so in that case, you're educating folks and you're wanted. So it's easier for you to seek to be somewhere when somebody says they want you versus you going to seek if somebody wants you. So I think that's part of it too. We need to be frank with that. So that's a great question to point. What has changed? Part of it is the fact that the MEAC has been really active in terms of seeking out some programs that they feel are a good fit, that they will work with, talking about how do they go to Division I FCS and make it work, right? So you have your own thoughts of what that looks like, but if you have conferences that talk to you about, all right, this is how we can help you facilitate the move, these are the ways we get things, which a lot of those questions you may have now become answered. You also have the success. Let's be frank. HBCUs have had a renaissance since COVID has taken place. The tragedy in terms of the murder of George Floyd, which is a scary thing to think about, but we've seen that interest in HBCUs in general take place. because of those things. So I think a lot of that is part of this too, is that there's a renewed interest in HBCUs, and that focus point, even with the SWAC in its expansion, now folks are saying, I want a piece of this. I want to get a little more of that light as well. And while we're getting some great shine over here in the CIAA or in the SIAC, we might see if we want a little more of that shine in the MEAC or the SWAC.
And probably the last piece of this question is, how does Morehouse navigate the Title IX, the Title IX requirement in terms of answering that?
It's easy for them. They don't have. It's a men's school. It's a fair question, but it's a men's school. You can't challenge me for Title IX when I don't have anything to buttress against.
Is there a requirement?
Title IX is about being.
Is there a requirement to have women's sports?
To women, no.
Okay.
I can't force an institution that doesn't have that component in their institution. It's an all male institution, so it is judged just on that. And so if you read the NCAA, it talks about if you have both there, what are the minimum requirements, but it also tells you what do you have to have if you have just men's sports. What are the numbers? So they would follow under that criteria of what you would need for men's sports in terms of that. So
sure.
I think that is a unique question, but it's not one that it seems like you get with the gotcha. So fascinating when you talk about what that looks like. Any last question that you wanted to ask, Mike, in terms of this discussion here?
No, I think the other piece that we really didn't delve into is kind of the travel piece and the budgeting, depending on which conference. That's a whole different, the subject in and of itself.
No, I think that's a really important question. So I'm glad you brought it out. I think one thing that we need to be careful, because we tend just to look at it very static. What is the distance from Atlanta to Delaware State? But we need to look at that at a given sport, and does that sport really travel? So, for example, as you all are well aware in the SWAC, people always talk about this travel, but really the travel is in football, and that's once a week in regards to what that looks like. And you're talking about out of 11 games, you're talking about 8, maybe 9 if you want to get it there, conference games. Half of those games will be at home, half of those games on the road. So you're talking about 4 or 5 travel games. That's not a lot when you think about it. Even if you go to the sport of men's and women's basketball, you have the fact that you travel playing what? If you have SWAC, they play an 18-game schedule, right? But you go to the MEAC with 8 schools, you're only playing 14 games. There's 7 at home, 7 away. You add to that, and you get an extra game. You add 2 teams, you get an extra 2 games. So it's not a lot. And for the other sports, where you get in there, a lot of times you do division, you travel in pods, you may go to a single location to get games in. So the travel doesn't necessarily have to be as extensive as it seems when you think about, because people look at it very static and say, all right, Morehouse, Atlanta has to travel to Delaware State, or if they're in the SWAC, Morehouse has to travel to Houston or Prairie View. And that's not necessarily the case. Just like the SWAC, when it expanded, it strategically made sure that the Texas schools would not be traveling to Florida and Alabama at the same time.
Yeah,
right.
So vice versa, Florida and Alabama schools are not traveling to Texas or Pine Bluff at the same time. So there's ways that you can look at decreasing travel costs, even though you're correct. Overall scheme, you need to understand what that looks like. Let's bring it to a close. Great discussion as we get into it. I'm sure the Twitter worlds will put out there and make it even more focused, because they're going to go off whatever interest they want to see in terms of what their thoughts are, which is good. It creates dialogue and talk, but I wanted to kind of frame it in a way that we really got into looking at the business components of it. Did a great job with your questions there. I appreciate you putting me on the spot, as they say. Hopefully I lived up to it as the Dean of HBCU Sports. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports. Come from Inside the Lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We hope you enjoyed. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. As you know, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'll look forward to Thursday as we discuss the latest in the news. We'll sneak in there some mid-major updates, let you know what's going on. Incredible games this past weekend. Hope you had a chance to check out BCSN with those rivalry games, as we had it all right here on our channel. You didn't get that anywhere else. We had literally rivalry weekend at the Division II level in the SIAC. All that love shown right here on the BCSN. So make sure you download my JVN, my BSN app. Make sure you continue to show us love at BCSN. Like, subscribe, all that good information to make sure you can stay upon it and get all your action right here on BCSN as we discuss what has taken place and what will take place as we look forward to next week and continue to discuss what's on in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Inside the HBCU Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
Dismiss.